Yo, it's your man with the plan, Martial Arts here with another Fire Emblem Three Houses video. This time we're going to talk about the new DLC that came out, the Cindered Shadows DLC route. And for those who don't know, this is, I think, the final wave of the current DLC pack. I don't know if there's going to be more updates or another storyline or what other things they're going to add to this game, but for now, this is what we consider the final wave of DLC for this game, unless correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's true. And I just kind of want to talk about like the DLC pack in general and how I felt about the Cindered Shadows. I'm not going to be reviewing all the stuff that was added to the main story, at least not in this video. I just kind of want to focus on the Cindered Shadows because that's the main bulk of what's going to be, that was basically advertised to be the most important of this DLC wave. And I'm just going to get right into it. So, let's just start with the gameplay. It's still Fire Emblem Three Houses. There's new classes, but the general basis hasn't, there's no classes or anything that completely breaks the game. I guess Yuri's class is pretty freaking powerful, but it's not almighty powerful, and the characters they give you are pretty good. I think Ash sometimes is it's not the best choice for some of these maps because I had problems using Ash, but I worked it out, and I really didn't like. I gotta say, when it came to map design, sometimes all of them had reinforcements, which, it's okay in Fire Emblem Three Houses. Sometimes it's annoying, sometimes it's not really fair. But in this DLC pack, almost every single map had reinforcements. And it got, some maps, you just can figure it out. Some maps were like, okay, all the enemies are in one corner and there's like no other enemies. Of course there's gonna be reinforcements if I don't kill them fast or something. And I could have guessed that. And there were some maps that I was like, there was this one map, and I can't remember if it was chapter 5 or chapter 4, where I was fighting against all these different, how do you explain it? I think all these mercenaries, and I was like, oh, I cleared out the mercenaries, and then all of a sudden, the whole map respawned, and I was like, wait, what? It just kind of slowly just kept on bringing more and more mercenaries in, and I was like, what the heck is this? It was so weird. It was not fair. We were in an outdoor area, and they just kept on respawning, all the ones I just killed, they respawned a whole new 4 of them or 5 of them with the boss, and it was just ridiculous because it happened 5 times, and it really irksome. And then right before I ended the map, they brought out these really powerful enemies next to all my units that were really weak to magic. I think they're magic flyers. I can't remember what they were. There were some I think there were flyers, and my magic units were all around it, and they just completely almost mollywopped all of them. I actually had trouble trying to maneuver my way around them, just because they spawned in when I wasn't expecting to do at the very end. But there's triggers for it though. Keep in mind there are triggers for the spawn ins. You'd be like, oh, if I kill this person or go past this point, they'll spawn in after you do the divine pulse. But God, it really was annoying on some parts. But other parts, it was really cool. I was like, oh my God, this is a really big battle, really long battle. But yes, the maps were good, but some of the respawn stuff was a little annoying for me, at least personally for me. Maybe it was annoying to everybody else. Alright, so next, I want to talk about the characters. So let's start with the 4 new characters we get. We get Yuri. So Yuri is the leader of, this is spoiler territory, just let you know before I keep on going, because now I'm going to start talking about story of the Fire Emblem main game, Three Houses main game, especially Golden Deer, because Golden Deer has a lot about the things I'm about to talk about. So if you haven't played Golden Deer and or Cindered Shadows, you probably want to click off this video right now, or to skip for a few minutes ahead. I don't know, maybe I'll put it on screen, maybe I'll put it down in the comment section if it really matters. But I'm going to talk about the characters now. Yuri. So, Yuri is a very interesting character because some of these characters do remind me of some of the characters in the cast, but not in a bad way. Yuri was a very interesting character. He reminds me of Claude, if Claude was not as, I guess, not as much of a jokester. Yuri was definitely more serious than Claude. But even in the story, they made a little, they were talking to each other oh my God, we are so similar. You hold your cards to your chest like I do. You're so cool, my man. And he's like, oh, Claude's like, oh, yeah. This is my kind of man. And it's just they were just dick stroking each other through the like that part of the story. But they even made that joke in the game. They're like, oh, they have similar ways of dealing with their problems. But back to the point, Yuri, very like it was cool to see like such a semi cocky, but he's an asshole, but he wasn't an asshole. And I think that's what I liked about Yuri. Like he had a character where he was just like, oh, I'm gonna punch you in the face, but there's a reason why I do it. I'm just doing it to survive. No hard feelings. I like that feeling. I love that about Yuri. Cool. That was. Oh my god. I love Yuri. He's very pretty for the type of character he was. He's very. I mean, I guess there's a lot of pretty sneaky characters, but he just comes off so like rough sometimes. Like in some of his dialogue and choices, like, oh, you know, he's just like, oh, just beat the hell out of him and just leave him there. He's just so. He's a cool character. I'm just gonna gush about Yuri forever. I love this character. Hapi. So, just when I thought there was enough archetypes in this game, there is a depressed, like, I guess, what would you call her? I don't want to call her emo or depressed. She's just very moody, I guess. That's more what it is. She's a very moody girl, and I think she has some type of like connection to those who slither in the dark. I haven't watched their supports yet in the main story, so like I said, I'm doing the content that was only in this story, and it was just really cool just to see her be like, and she sighs, she creates monsters. Hopefully they talk about that, because it reminds me of Marianne a lot, like how she sighs, or like how Marianne has that crest that might turn her into a beast. And it was just really cool. She's very interesting, and I think she'd be way more interesting too once I actually play through like some of the main story content supports, because Hapi's really cool. Now it's time for Constance. So I'll be real with you. I actually expected like Constance a lot more than Hapi and the rest of them. But I gotta say, even though this is not a bad thing, because all the Fire Emblem 3 houses, I love all of them, even Constance. But I gotta say, out of the 4 characters we got, I gotta say Constance is actually the weakest one. She's just, not that she's bad, it's just a personal opinion. This is a personal opinion because I know there's a lot of people's waifu. She's kind of annoying a lot of times, because it was just like, I guess she has a gimmick, and the gimmick was cool and all, but I kind of wish there was more of a, maybe, like as I said, if I played through some of her supports in the main story, it'd make more of sense, or it'd be like a, like Bernadetta situation. But it just feels like, I don't know, I just find her annoying. She's really loud, and I feel like I have the same problem I have with her that I have with Persona 4's Chie. She's just really loud and disruptive in some of the cutscenes, and it's for a lot of no reason. It'd be very serious, and she'd be like, wow, I'm going to cut you down to 1,000,000 pieces. You know, and Yuri's like, oh my god, I'm about to freaking lose. I'll never lose. And it's just something about her. She kind of killed some of the scenes a little bit for me. But, you know, not everything has to be serious, but she did get on my nerves. But I still love her, though. She's still cool. It's like, there's times where it's cool. It's just some situations, it felt like it was she should have been her depressed sunlight self sometimes, because that one seemed like, I don't know, they're both kind of funny in a way. They kind of she's kind of comic relief a little bit. But enough of that. Let's go to Balthus. Balthus is a really interesting character. I actually like Balthus a lot, because I used to call him Elvis Presley, because he just looked like young Elvis Presley to me. I don't know. Maybe it's just my imagination, but I need to look at Elvis Presley again. But I was like, young Elvis Presley. I find it that him and Hilda's relationship was actually kind of sweet. It kind of cool at the same time. I really like. He's like Raphael. If Raphael was a little smarter and a little bit like more serious, in my opinion. Which honestly, Raphael's good by himself. I actually love Raphael, but it was also cool to see another big dude with a different perspective on being a big softie. He was a different kind of big softie. It was more like, I'm going to protect it, I'm going to do whatever it takes to win, but I'm still not going to be an asshole big softie. And it was an interesting character, and I'm really curious to see what else there is to it, because I don't think there's not many big characters. He's a big character, because Raphael's all the strong characters who are really about fighting and stuff tend to not be too smart in Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Casper's not supposed to be really smart, at least in dialogue. Raphael's not supposed to be really smart. And it was just cool to have somebody who's a little bit more perceptive in his surroundings. So I like Balthus a lot. Okay, now it's time for the story. Oh man. So I'm just gonna go through a few points and just explain what about the story I liked and what about it disappointed me. And I gotta say right off the bat, it was the length of it, and it's not because we deserve to have it longer. And I'll kind of like clarify that as I talk about it a little bit more. But the story was good. It was just good. It could have been a little bit better, but it was good. But let's just start from the beginning. So the beginning of this is basically you go down to Abyss, yada yada yada, with the mercenaries, fight some mercenaries. Then you find this chalice that's about reviving people that died. And I thought, this is my theory, so I'm going through my little theory first before I go through what actually happened. I thought that chalice was going to be used as a way to explain how Nemesis came back. And I thought, what's his name? I thought, well, Alfric, or is it Alfric? I think it's Alfric or something like that, was going to be an oligarchan. And I thought he was going to be like a good one, like one that wasn't going to have like vengeance against humanity or one of those things. And because if you look at like Nemesis' sword, I think he has one of our main protagonist's crest on his sword, of the Cindered. Sorry, I said the Cinder Wolves. The Ashen Wolves. They has like one of the crests on the sword, I think, from somebody pointed out to me. And I just thought it was going to be like, oh, that chalice is how Nemesis came back. I was like, oh, that's really cool. That's going to be a really cool like twist. And maybe Rhea couldn't bring back the goddess because she was too powerful, and she didn't want people just bringing back random people or Nemesis or anybody. But no, it actually went in a completely different direction than my theory, because I was hoping that the whole time going through it would actually happen. I was hoping that it was just like part one, because I thought it was going to be like a more full path than it was actually going to be, than it actually was. I thought it was going to go through this Alfric stuff, and then it was going to go through like the Slither in the Dark stuff, and because I was like, oh, they still need to talk about them a little bit more, because I talked about that in the past video, that they need to talk about the Slither in the Dark a little bit more. And I was like, oh, this is what they're going to do here, because they're underground, you know, the Slither in the Dark were underground. And I thought Alfric was going to have that chalice, and he's going to be the asshole who accidentally tricked the wolves into uncovering the chalice for his selfish needs, and then the Slither in the Dark was going to take the chalice, and they were like, oh, don't worry about it, can't do anything because it fucked up Alfric. And then they're like, oh, really? They know how to use it, and it brought back Nemesis or something. Like, I thought it was going to go that direction, but the direction it really went was it was going in the background more on byleth and Gerald, and that was cool and all. So he got the chalice, and this is what really happened. He got the chalice, and then he was basically draining the wolves of their lives, and then he tried to resurrect Byleth's mom, because he was a simp for Byleth's mom. And he just wanted to see her alive again and happy, and he knows that Rhea's experiment had something to do with her being weak. And that was pretty much it. And he basically failed. Basically, Rhea made the point that no one needs to do it because it brings back like a horrible monster that's stronger than most sacred beasts. And that's basically it. Wulfric dies. Alfric dies, and the wolves kind of leave the underground to do their own thing. And I kind of liked the story that they chose for the game, but I think they should have had like a time skip, an artifact. It could have been. It didn't have to even be like a real time skip. It was all. It was weird because the whole story is basically, quote unquote, according to the actual story itself, is them what they do on their free time after class. That's basically the whole point of that free story. It's like, oh, professor, teach these people when you're not doing your usual stuff as a professor. And I want all these students to help you guys, help them out too whenever they have time. So basically this story was happening over the time after chapter 5. Like I think it happened after chapter 5 and like after class for like a month or two. But it happened up until chapter 5. I don't know. I think because it started happening before people started going all crazy in the main story. But I was just a little disappointed. I think it needed a part 2 to it, because it still felt like it was like, oh, okay, that's the story? Okay, like, there was no big, like, wow, that's how Nemesis came back, or, wow, That's why the oligarthans don't like this asshole. Because I thought Alfric was going to be like an oligarthan. He's going to explain like, oh, we hate the surface people because they freaking took our nukes and accidentally nuked us with their nukes, and the goddess punished them as well, or something, something dramatic. But nope, it's just about Byleth, which there's nothing wrong about Byleth, but Byleth is an avatar character, and not only is he not an avatar character, he's an avatar character who is supposed to be you. Like, like if you think about Robin and Corin, I guess more Robin than Corin, because Corin was kind of bland too, but Robin was his own character, a lot of his own character. He was a tactician, and he was so clever, he was, witty, he was like a ladies' man, kind of a nerd. But Byleth has no really personality. He doesn't even have a voice actor. Not for real, he has a voice actor, but he doesn't have like voice lines. It doesn't have, and it just felt a little like, okay, I mean, I guess I know that about Byleth now, and his mom. Still sad as hell though. It just, in the grand scheme of things, didn't mean much to me. And now I just want to talk a little bit about the whole pack in general, the whole DLC pack. I gotta say, the DLC pack is $25. It was kind of worth it. I think it was worth $20 to $15. I think there was some, I expected this a tad bit more for what we got for the Cindered Shadows DLC, especially since they kind of like put everything into it for it to be like, for this to be the DLC. I thought it was going to be a little bit more story heavy and a little bit more like, it's pretty much, it is very much a side story about the Ashen Wolves more than anything else. It's not really about the main story as much. It gives you good lore, just not exactly the lore that some people were asking for or looking for. And if you guys aren't into DLC costumes, I could see why you guys wouldn't want to do it, because a lot of DLC costumes were really, really cool looking. Really, really, really cool looking. I do gotta say, some of them were a little bit... I gotta say, when I heard there's a maid costume and there's a butler costume, I expected them to be... I know Fire Emblem Three Houses is not a fan service heavy game, but I expected them to be a little bit more sexy, is the word, I guess? I'm not saying it has to be sexy or has to be like some crazy fan service. It just... I wasn't really wowed about a lot of the costumes, except for the one for Byleth. The Byleth costumes were amazing. Especially male Byleths, because I don't really play female Byleth. But overall, I gotta say, I really enjoyed this DLC pack. It was really fun to go through. I just wish there was maybe like 7 more maps to it. It was a little bit more like Edelgard's story. Like, how Edelgard's story, let's say this, Cindered Shadows kind of reminds me of Edelgard's story in general. It's like it gives you everything that you need to know right in the story, but it feels like it needs a little bit more, just explain. It was perfect the way it is, but it could have used more of it to be like God tier. Like, oh, this happened because this happened. Why did Alfric know about this? Or why did who were those mercenaries hired by? And stuff like that. Like, and it was really hired by Edelgard's uncle. It was hired by Rhea. And it was just something a little bit more dramatic, because it felt like it was a lot of the drama came from, it was a lot of introducing the wolves. I felt like a lot of those chapters, like, oh, this is Yuri, and Yuri is this and this. But I know in the main story they added like 4 paralogs for the 4 characters, dialogue options for all the characters through all those different stories, different interaction with those characters. They added more supports for all the characters, gay supports, straight supports for characters who just couldn't have, same sex relationships and all this other stuff. So I know they added a lot of stuff, but I think a lot of that was free stuff, I think. And some of it just came with the Ashen Wolves because they are new supports. But overall, I gotta say, I'm very impressed with Fire Emblem Three Houses. I think it could have been a little bit more of a complete package if this is the last DLC. But overall, I gotta say, Fire Emblem is going to go into a great direction if this is what we're given overall in general for a game. Because every game, even though Fates didn't have a good story, didn't have like a good background story, you didn't even know what continent you were living on. It was a very interesting thing to go all the way through. And I hope in the future that Fire Emblem Three Houses take notes from Fire Emblem Three Houses and remake Fire Emblem 4. I think the fourth Fire Emblem. Hopefully they remake that game and they just build upon that with Three Houses, and it'll just become like even better than Three Houses. I hope. But that's enough of me talking about this DLC. You don't want to hear me ramble any longer. I really appreciate all the love and support. Give me a thumbs up and or a thumbs down. Doesn't matter which one. This helps know you guys are watching. Also hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon to join the rebellion, because I'm only back to any friends. And I'll see you guys in the next video in the stream. Bye bye, and have yourselves a damn good one.